Everybody, I'm live. I was hoping to do this a little earlier, but better late than never. Things are slowly starting to drop. Oh, hold on. What did I do here? All right, here we go. So I've got this feed over here with the just a bunch of news as we get. I'm gonna just put it like this. So we'll get to see everything as it comes, just a little better this way to see what happens instead of me just pulling up the whole browser. So yeah, I was hoping to start a little earlier just so I could talk about some of the other trades that happened from last night. Because if you guys were on yesterday's stream, you'll notice I was on for like an hour, 10 minutes, something like that. And right when I ended it, the Mark Williams trade happens. And I think at this point, I'm just going to kind of react to stuff as it happens because we're in the last hour. And I just get the feeling that we're probably just, now we're going to get just a flurry of moves. And just seems like mostly ancillary at this point. We just had the Atlanta trading DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs. So I already said a little bit about this. I don't think this either this is not going to be the final trade. It's very possible it's going to be like a 3-team trade, or at least the Hawks have something else. Because as I already put it all together, this would put the Hawks into the tax. It takes the Cavs out of it, but they are now. This would put the Hawks into it right now based on the current construction, and they have to create a roster spot before doing this. So you could see right slightly over the tax, about 2.1 million. So I'm expecting them to do something else. As you can see by some of their lower paid guys, could be anyone from like Zeller, Roddy, Garrison Matthews, Krejci. Clearing just one of them would be enough. Or maybe it'll be expanded and one of Niang or Levert go to another team. Do we have anything about what the draft compensation is? It just says picks. The Cavs can only trade one first-round pick in 2031. I have a hard time imagining that's the selection they gave up to do this. But yeah, let's just keep an eye on what the Hawks end up doing. I'm sure they're going to end up doing something else. As for Cleveland, so they were right over the tax, and they get 2 birds in 1 stone. They make an upgrade at the 3. I assume he'll be starting at the 3, bringing DeAndre Hunter. They open up a roster spot, and they're about 1.5 million below the tax. I can get rid of this. And they are below the first apron. They were never hard capped, but they were always going to stay below the first apron. So they can sign just about anybody who gets bought out. I'm starting to put together a list of who might be buyout guys, and that's going to be fluid over the next hours, because if there are some good players that get traded to bad teams, that guy will instantly become a buyout candidate. But they open up a roster spot, so they have 2 open spots, and they can get somebody else. I think they're going to also create like a little bit of a trade exception. Nothing too big. They probably wouldn't even use it. In the chat, it says Shams said 3 seconds and 2 swaps. So Cavs keep the 2031. So I guess he said that on ESPN. I'm going to ask a question, and hopefully someone can answer in the chat. Am I allowed to play the sound of the ESPN broadcast? I know I definitely can't show the video, but if I can play the sound, let me know, because I wouldn't mind putting that on for the background. Don't want this to get shut down or anything. So if the Cavs sent out 3 seconds, what do I have them with? I know they have a good amount of seconds. They had like 6 or 7. So, and then as far as swaps, I don't remember if they gave out any swaps when they traded for Donovan Mitchell. Maybe 1, in which case they'd have like 2 left. I don't know. I was trying to remember, but that's good if they keep that 2031 first. That's a little too much for DeAndre Hunter. Very curious what the Hawks' direction is. They tried to get Brandon Ingram, didn't. Now I wouldn't say this trade makes them like worse or anything, like significantly worse, anything like that, but more or less the same. They've been sliding down the standings. They don't own their pick this year. Not exactly in the best spot right now. Oh, here we go. We might have some details. Let's see. 3 seconds, 2 pick swaps. Okay, well, still no details which ones. As a service, swaps are in 26 and 28 per Wendy. They already sent those swaps to Utah. Okay, so derivative of swaps. So if in 2026 and 2028, Utah really benefits from these if both the Cavs and Hawks are, I'm sorry, if both, no, so it's only a Cav swap. So the Hawks only benefit from this if they're better than the Jazz and the Cavs. So we'll see. One thing I discussed yesterday is that if the Hawks were to pursue Brandon, well, they did pursue Brandon Ingram, didn't end up getting him, is that they were going to have to trade both DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan Bogdanovic realistically to make it work, just because otherwise there is no way they'd be able to keep DeAndre Hunter. But now, Brandon Ingram, but now they're getting off of Hunter's money. They still take back a little bit of long-term in Yang. I think the Hawks, it's not like premium value for Hunter, but they probably did this because of his recent injury history. Probably he's having a really good year. I understand them wanting to get ahead of him having like another extended absence and get something for him now. So it's not bad. I'm surprised we haven't seen more pick swaps traded. We're starting to see a little bit more now. But yeah, another big motivation for the Hawks is their payroll for next year. So they're getting off Hunter's $23 million for next year. And now, they don't have these incentives. About $30 million in tax. Assuming they keep Niang, we still don't know what's going on there. Levert's expiring. Probably, to be honest, it might be even less. They might have even more because I still have them with that Kings pick. That might not end up conveying. Kings could very well miss the playoffs, but it'll probably be on the fringe of the protection. It's like top 12 are protected, I think. So they have a lot of flexibility just to fill out their bench. Maybe they want to re-sign Clint Capella. They could extend him if they don't trade him ahead of within the next hour. So let's see how. And then I wonder how Cleveland's situation is going to be. You're taking on a pretty good amount of money in Hunter next year. Just putting him on Cleveland. Okay, so I think the Cavs are pretty much going to be a tax team next year. Yeah, I'm going to plug him in here. Yeah. So the Cavs make somewhat of a big move. I was hoping that they could maybe get Cam Johnson. I was thinking about them as a sneaky Chris Middleton team. If the Wizards do end up doing something with him, flipping him ahead of the deadline. But yeah, here it is. I plugged in Hunter. Got these 1.5. Big luxury tax, big investment now. I said the Cavs, they ducked the tax this year. They were just barely above it. I think that was prudent. But so they can start being aggressive spenders next year. So, and they're going to have to. You're paying Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, all max contracts. You got DeAndre Hunter and Jared Allen making north of 20. And that's while you still have Strus and Okoro. Maybe they end up moving Okoro to save some money or get some other pieces that can help. They could, and that's before potentially re-signing Ty Jerome, who they'll have early bird rights on. They could pay him properly, whatever the market dictates for him. They're actually going to be like at the second apron right now here with 10 players, so they can be really aggressive with their spending. Ideally, I would think they'd not want to cross the second apron to protect their 2033 pick at that point from being frozen. But who knows? Dan Gilbert has shown a willingness to spend deep in the tax in the second tenure of LeBron. Obviously, how deep they go in the playoffs will dictate things. Let's see. Yeah, no other updates. So I'll probably touch on the Phoenix stuff next. Just some quick plugs. If you are watching this on YouTube, feel free to ask me any questions, make comments in the chat. Be happy to discuss. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'll still be trying my best to post updates there while live streaming. And yeah, subscribe to my stuff. Subscribe to YouTube if you're watching this on Twitter. Subscribe to Third Apron. Check out my newsletter. I'll probably have something out tomorrow or the following day about the trade deadline. I don't know what specifically. We'll see. All right. Yeah, I suppose I'll get to Phoenix then. They just traded Nurkic finally. So they had a really expensive roster. We all know that. So this is what before the Nurkic trade, they're about 380 million. They're like barely hovering around 500. They're going to want to save some money. They could do a couple more things. They don't necessarily need to trade KD last second to save even more money, but I think they'll want to maybe try to get off some of their minimum guys, see if they can reduce payroll that way. But they were at like just over 400 million before the Nick Richards trade. That saved the money. Now, here I plugged in the trade here. So they save about, what were they before? 380. So they save about, what is that? 15 mil? Yeah. So they reduced 15 mil. So that's like roughly close to like 40 million between this and the Nick Richards trade. So good amount of savings there. And they're not even saving that much money on the payroll. Going from Nurkic to Martin and Micic doesn't save them that much. But just how punitive the luxury tax system is when you're that deep into the tax, 40 plus million into it, saving just a couple million will go a long way. I've got a couple updates. Sounds like this is it for the Suns. Suns won't trade Kevin Durant unless they get a combination of assets and younger players back. I would expect that could get revisited over the summer. That's by John Gambadoro. And then there's another update just now. I'm not seeing it pop up on the feed. Here we go. Hearing that will be the only trade for the Suns today. Okay, so then that's it. The Suns will go into the season with a little deeper roster. So Martin and Micic, Not sure they're in the long-term plans. Good piece of depth to add both of them. Mainly Martin. But, and this is a thing I tweeted about as soon as the trade happened. So I'm going to show you next year, because here's where the savings are more significant. So here's a projection of their roster once they get to 14 players. Because you got to get the 14 players usually throughout the season. So Cody Martin, $8.7 million non-guaranteed. Vasilije Micic, $8.1 million team option. If they were to keep both guys, they're looking again at having like a $450 million team. If they decline both guys, once they get to 14 and they'll still be over the aprons, they don't have any mid-level, they don't have too much flexibility to increase their payroll, they're save about $100 million. So that's the big incentive for the Suns to do this. They get rid of one of those firsts that they got by trading their 31 to the Suns. So they have 2 firsts left to trade. And I think it said that they got a second from the Hornets by doing this. So they still have, so they might still have a couple more moves to make later in the offseason, assuming they're done for the day. So yeah, the Suns save a good amount of money there. We'll see if, obviously, it's all pending on them cutting them, but I think that was the motivation. They wanted to get guys that they're not on the hook for next year. And I guess that'd be a good segue to Charlotte and touching on the Lakers trade they did last night. Because I think Charlotte's having a really good offseason. I'm going to get into some bigger picture thoughts on them. So the Hornets, they are probably going to do the Nurkic trade first. So they send out 2 guys to get 1. That creates a roster spot. Then they can do the 1 for 2. Send out Mark Williams, bring back Cam Reddish, and who else did they get back? Dalton Connect. I'm really impressed with what the Hornets have done over the past year. And this is even before the new front office took over. They did pretty well last trade deadline, getting a first for Terry Rozier, getting a first for PJ Washington, getting Trey Mann in 2 seconds for Gordon Hayward. Then in the offseason, they've accumulated like 8+ second-round picks by just using their cap space to take money. Like they got 3 seconds from the Nuggets for taking on Reggie Jackson. And a couple more from Nick Richards. They helped the Knicks with that cat trade. So they accumulated a bunch. And they went from having a lot of cap space to just slowly, incrementally increasing their payroll, getting like right to the tax, and just getting a bunch of second-round picks. And now some first-round picks. They get that first-round pick from the Lakers, plus a swap, and a first-round pick from the Suns. So they now have 11 first-round picks over the next 7 drafts. Then they have 2 in this upcoming draft. And they'll have not cap space, but still some flexibility next year to do more of these moves. Taking in Nurkic's $19 million for next year will cap him out. Now, I do want to say it feels like this Hornets front office is not at all attached to any of the players drafted from the previous regime. Now, a lot of them have already been gone, like PJ. I might be blanking on some of the guys from the last iteration that would make the play-in now and then. Obviously, I'm sure Miles Bridges is available, just a matter of, I think, someone having interest in him. But they traded Nick Richards. They traded Mark Williams, who we didn't even know is available. He probably wasn't available, but I think that's just such a good offer for the Hornets to pass up. I'm curious what this means for LaMelo. Because realistically, this Hornets team, they're making it worse presently. they are probably not going to be good anytime soon. While LaMelo's on this contract, he's on the first year of it's 5 for 200 something. And they've just been focusing on the rebuild. They're going to get a high lottery pick. I've got them projected with 3. They've got another pick coming this year. They've got now multiple picks in future years. I keeping an eye on LaMelo, not necessarily today, but I would get the feeling that if some team comes to them with a Godfather offer of like 4 or 5 firsts, whatever it might be, I think they'd have a serious conversation about it. So, what is LaMelo really doing with this team now? It's him and Miller, unless they really like LaMelo and they think there's something special with Miller, but Miller still got time as good as he's been this year. Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on that. Do you think there are any realistic backup big man targets for Miami, or will they just look at the buyout? Well, I'm going to have to see what their situation is, and especially because this trade is still kind of fluid. But that'll be a good time to touch. Oh, you know what? Let me at least finish on the Lakers aspect. But yeah, the Hornets Lakers here. So that's the Hornets aspect. So the Lakers, I think they gave up a lot to get Mark Williams. And I get that. I'm sure, though, they're not getting any. I'm sure a lot of fans are not really going to criticize them after they managed to get Luka. I understand that. But I thought they would hold on to that 31 first for something bigger potentially down the line. No, they're going in all in right now. And I think they could still make a couple more moves, even though they traded their last pick. But from a value proposition, Mark Williams is pretty good, but he's also pretty injury prone so far. He just missed a whole year. Feel like the Lakers kind of bought high by like a recent stretch he had. Obviously, though, it's not like criticizing the fit or the player. Like, they needed a big man like him, so they can easily I think they could still make the conference finals, maybe even win the whole thing. Like, that's a beautiful thing about having Luka, and especially him and LeBron. Luka's shown, like, both players have shown that you don't need to like have an amazing roster around these guys. They can bring a lot out of everything, but that was sort of like the missing piece, so to speak, a really good big man. So as far as salvaging a deep playoff run this year, I think this trade is good enough for that. I just still think they gave up a lot. And if anyone bigger becomes available down the line, it might be a little harder. Next first round pick they could trade us 2 years from now when their 2033 first round pick becomes available. But yeah, they sent out Reddish and Dalton Connect. Yeah, so they kind of traded so they traded like 2 first round picks, 2.5 when you include that 2030 swap. So pretty aggressive. But they have to trade both players to exceed Mark Williams' salary. Remember, they're over the first apron. They can't increase the payroll in the trade. And they get a little more second apron space. So they have a little more flexibility to maybe take on a minimum player in a trade. They can still aggregate players. They can combine, but like a lot of the ones they got that were recently acquired. So they can't aggregate Kleba. They can't aggregate Milton or Morris, DFS, who I'm sure they're not going to trade anyways. So if they want to do like Vincent and Wood or something to bring back someone making a little more, that's possible. But they also do have a little more flexibility to participate in the buyout market. They can't sign anyone making the mid-level or more. They still have their taxpayer mid-level. They could still use that. So maybe if they need to pay someone a little more than the minimum, they have that option. They've done that in the past with Dinwiddie last year, Markieff Morris the year before. And their roster is more or less set over the next 2 years. We'll see what they end up doing Today. I think they could still do something else. But yeah, as far as next year, they're kind of locked into this. No flexibility to do too much else unless they can get off a lot of some of this money over here. Then they can maybe get some more room. Well, also I should bear in mind, let's see what LeBron does. He's got that player option. Last offseason, he strongly considered taking a significant salary reduction to help them out. Maybe now that they have Luka and all this other, like a lot of other guys I need to get paid, that's the easiest way to open up flexibility next year, whether it's to open up the mid-level, the full mid-level, or just have more room below the apron so you can make bigger trades. But as I'm about to touch on, they don't have any first round picks left to trade. They only have 1 second round pick to trade in this year's upcoming draft. So the biggest things that they could do within the next 45 minutes is trade their pick swaps. They have swaps in 26 and 28. Let's see what they could do with that. Can they now their backcourt's a little thin after trading Connect. They've been looking for a point of attack defender. Someone I've always thought might make some sense is Ayo Dosunmu. Can they do maybe Vincent and a swap for him? I don't know. We'll see. But seeing how they're going all in, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up just moving both swaps, get something now, and then they're truly out of selections to trade. So yeah, it's an overpay, but could also still be enough for them to make it all the way. What other trades do we have? How do I feel about how the Sixers have done so far? I think it makes sense that they're going this direction, just pivoting towards like a soft retool for the rest of the season. Seems like they're probably going to miss the playoffs. So they get out of the tax. They've done this. They've been doing this for the past few years, starting over the tax, getting below it. They now just traded Reggie Jackson. They got off his money, sent him to the Wizards, along with a first round pick next year for 4 second round picks. So they were already below the tax. The Reggie Jackson, by getting off Reggie Jackson, they just get a little more flexibility. So something they might just do now is convert Justin Edwards. Maybe they'll just do that now because they have enough room to do that. They can only give them the minimum. They used up their entire mid-level on Kelly Oubre. So they can only give him a 2-year minimum. He wasn't drafted by them, so he can only do a 2-year minimum. So I think it's fine. As far as that swap they did, I think it makes sense because that pick they're giving up next year is going to be the worst of Clippers, Rockets, and OKC. And just having OKC and Houston in that mix, very likely that's going to be like late 20s, if not the last pick in the first round next year. So Sixers clearly not interested in that. Get a bunch more seconds, especially after trading 2 to get off KJ Martin. Mark Stein reported that the trade with the Mavs to swap Caleb Martin and Quentin Grimes got amended. So now the Sixers are also sending back a first to the Mavs. So I get it. They just refuel a little bit on seconds for a first that might not be very valuable. Overall, I think the Sixers are doing fine. Nothing crazy. They just need save some money, keep flexibility open for next year, and try to get as many draft picks as you can. Okay, so any realistic backup bigs for Miami? So Miami, they modified the trade. It's now, the Jimmy trade's now going to be a 5-teamer that does include Toronto. It was reported yesterday that the Raptors would take Kyle Anderson. That's not happening. Instead, they're going to be getting PJ Tucker and sending out Davion Mitchell to the Heat. So that saves the Heat even more money, still over the tax. I will see. They've got about 40 minutes to try to make another dump. Maybe they can get it done with like Kevin Love or swapping Mitchell again for someone else making a little less. But they're below the first apron now, so they can participate in the buyout market. As far as players that can be like actual bigs on the buyout market, not a lot. The ones that come to mind, there's like Marvin Bagley. Yeah, there's not a lot of bigs. I'm looking at my preliminary list. He might be the best big man who realistically hits the buyout market. So here's the interesting thing about the Heat trade now, though. Based on the structure, since they're getting below the first apron, they open up the full mid-level. They can structure it where they take Kyle Anderson into it, and then they're only trading Jimmy Butler for Wiggins and Davion Mitchell. So that would give him a pretty big trade exception, about $16.1 million. Don't have to use it now. It would take them over the tax, but maybe next year they'll have a little bit more flexibility now that they no longer have Jimmy Butler's $50 million salary on the books. Yeah, here's what they're looking at now. Hopefully, they'll probably want to try to get off some more money later, because otherwise this is pretty much the roster they're married to next year. Already like right up against the tax. But other big man options, yeah, they could use another big man now that they're starting Bam and Khalil together. Maybe they could still get Chris Boucher from Toronto, open up that trade a little bit more, expand it a little bit more. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have a list. I don't think they'll get like Robert Williams or anything like that. We got a trade. I totally missed it. The Clippers are trading Terrence Mann and Bones for Bogdan Bogdanovic. Why isn't my feed loading fast enough? Hold on. Here we go. Well, this just makes what the Hawks are doing even more complicated. Because they're already doing another 1 for 2. Okay. Yeah, so we'll see what the Heat end up doing. What can the Raps do with PJ Tucker? They just got... I mean, they could trade him for someone a little more expensive. They still have like $2.5 million below the tax, so maybe they want to try to get someone making that much, making just like a little bit more. They have an open roster spot. They could also take on a minimum guy with that space, but I think they'll probably just hold on to Tucker, buy him out most likely. Do you think Lonzo will be traded? So as I said last night, that extension that Lonzo Ball signed still keeps him trade eligible. So they can still trade him. I don't think they will, but just something I was pointing out, technically still possible. Also trying to process this Bones Bogdan trade right now. It was Bones and Terrence Mann. So Terrence Mann, similar like Lonzo Ball, he signed an extension earlier in the offseason that also kept him trade eligible. I think he signed it in September. So if it was like a bigger extension, he wouldn't be allowed to get traded. But here we are. They traded Terrence Mann, who's having like a pretty atrocious season prior to his injury. I don't know how he's been since he got back, but it's been pretty rough for Mann. Oh God, disconnected. That's not good. It says I got disconnected. Hold on, let me see now. Am I still going? My thing. Okay, stream is back. All right. Yeah, I got an alert saying that the stream got disconnected. Good to know we're still here. Okay, I'll just go back and talk about. I was answering the question about Lonzo Ball. He can still be traded because the extension he got is just short enough where he can still be traded. But I don't think they'll trade him. I think they generally want to keep him. And I'm touching on this Hawks trade with the Clippers where they're bringing in man who also has a similar situation as Lonzo. He has he signed an extension earlier, late in the offseason that kept him trade eligible, felt just within his limits. So yeah, had he gotten a bigger extension, the Clippers wouldn't be able to trade man right now. So this is probably something the Hawks, this is something the Hawks will do to help balance their tax situation, but they're still over the tax. So this probably is not quite everything they need to do yet. It helps, but they'll probably need a little something else. I just do not see them paying any tax just to do all this stuff. And then what did the Clippers end up giving up as far as draft picks? 3 seconds. Okay. I get the feeling that's all the seconds that the Clippers have. I don't think they had that many to begin with. Question is, does this get the Clippers below the tax? Oh, they were below the tax after doing the PJ trade. Does this still keep them under it? Yeah, they're good. Gain a little bit of increase payroll a little bit, open up a roster spot, 2.4 million below, could participate in the buyout market, sign just about anybody. So pretty deep at guard now. They really needed another, one secondary playmaker. Bogdanovic definitely helps that. It's just been Harden. Dunn does, I guess that takes Porter out of the rotation completely now. Oh, the Clippers are getting 3 seconds. Thank you, Alexander, in the chat. Huh. Okay, so then the Hawks they're trying to save some money, but then get like a nice team-friendly deal in Terrence Mann. Okay, that's fine. Bit of a buy low for them. See if it pans out. Let's see. So the Hawks taking on then a little bit more salary for next year, which is fine. I went over them just now. They had like a lot of tax space after getting off of Hunter. So yeah, they'll still have room to get a backup big. That's their biggest thing. And they can create a little more space by cutting Cody Zeller, which I'm sure they will. Maybe they end up trading him. Oh, here, 3 second-round picks heading from Atlanta to Los Angeles, along with Bogdanovic, 25 Wolves, 27 Clippers, 26. Okay, so good on the Clippers to restock on their first. I am just going to do a quick tweet, just let everyone know that the stream is still fine, just in case they left after it got disconnected. I'll just say. All right. 30 minutes to go, everyone. If you're seeing the stream on Twitter, please subscribe to YouTube. You'll get notified whenever I am going to go live. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'll have lots of tweets reacting to trades, transactions as they happen, breaking them down from a cap perspective. And subscribe to my newsletter, Third Apron, links in the description. What other trades happened? There's been a couple. Didn't quite write them down. Just going to quickly check. I'm going to go through Hoops rumors. Just try to get a summary, see if I missed anything. Oh, I didn't touch on the Wizards aspect of it. See where the Wizards are at now. Okay, so this morning they cut CD Sissoko to open up a roster spot so they can then take on Reggie Jackson. They also open up a two-way spot by sending out Jared Butler to the Sixers. Very quietly, very nice trade deadline for the Wizards. I like what they're doing. After they did the Valanciunas trade, they had 18 second-round picks. They're able to convert 4 of them into that late first for next year. So, yeah, I really like it. They still have some more room below the tax to do something else. They still have that Gafford $12.4 million trade exception from last year to bring in another expensive player. Maybe they end up doing that. The only thing they're really missing is an additional first-round pick for this upcoming draft. So that's what I keep an eye on, see if they're able to do that. But yeah, Wizards slowly diversifying their draft equity over the next few years. They've got 3 extra firsts, one from the Warriors in 2030, this one for next year, probably OKC's. And then they've also got they got another pick. I forgot who it is. So Nuggets trying to get Chris Boucher. So they would have to it would definitely have to be Zeke Naji and Sarge. That would work. Or it could be Zeke and a minimum guy. But this is probably the cleanest for the Nuggets. I like that. Boucher on the Nuggets. That makes some sense. Vucevic. Is anything going to happen there? Feels like no at this point. But I suppose the Warriors are still trying to do it. Let's take a look at the Warriors, see how they can potentially do it, because their whole situation is still very in flux. That trade is still not official, might slowly be getting expanded. If they're going to bring in Vucevic, they're basically going to have to send all 3 of these guys out, realistically. That would allow them to bring in his $20 million, but then also fill out the rest of the roster. Now, keep in mind that with the current framework, if they finish a trade like this, they're at 11 guys, they're going to have to sign someone today, which will probably be Quentin Post. And since they drafted him, they get to get his rookie salary, his prorated amount. So it'd be like 400-something thousand. I was explaining yesterday that either Jimmy will have to give up part of his trade bonus, so that's why it's an estimated salary, or they might have to send someone else to be able to fill out the roster. So we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, this seems like this Warriors trade is still not final as far as the framework we know right now. See if there's any more details on this trade. Team still calling about KD. Okay. I didn't see that. So after the Warriors gave up their bid to acquire Kevin Durant, Suns not going, they're not going to get Jimmy. Shams reported on NBA Today some teams haven't given up the idea of trying to pry Durant away. Oh, but this was a while ago. I feel like it's just Miami at this point, though, if he's actually going to get moved. In which case, if that happens, then the Jimmy trade would just get expanded to a 6-teamer. And whatever the Warriors are getting, which right now is Wiggins, Anderson, and Davion, maybe all those guys just go to the Suns. But I feel like now that Nurkic trade happened, that's probably not happening. And then there was that report by Gambadoro earlier. He just said that they're done for the day. So, okay. So that's old. Yeah, good point by Bradley Rowland. Like I'm saying, they're technically at 17 spots right now. Theoretically, they can't actually be at 17. The Hawks can't acquire these guys and then cut them in conjunction with the trade. They got to create the roster spots ahead of finishing the trades. Let's see what else. Oh, yeah. Baldwin to the Spurs. So this will probably just further expand that Kuzma trade, where it was a 2-team trade with the Wizards. Maybe it's a 4-team trade now because the Knicks are sending Sims to the Bucks for Delon Wright. And now the Bucks are going to reroute Baldwin to the Spurs. So maybe that's just one big 4-team trade. But that would give the Bucks a little more apron space, which is second apron space, which is significant for a couple of reasons. Well, first, they're opening up a roster spot. So in case someone is in the buyout market, they can go after them. Obviously, can't have a salary above the mid-level. And they could potentially give Kuzma a little more of his trade bonus. This is the projected amount I have. Based on the reporting that he might have to reduce it for them to stay below the second apron. But by getting off Baldwin, then they're going to stay well below the second apron. So they can actually give him the full amount now and still have space to stay below it. But they get a little more breathing room where they can aggregate now. Let's see, maybe the Bucks do something with a combination of Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton. That's allowed now since they're going to be below the second apron once they do the Kuzma trade. So if they wanted to, they could still combine these guys to bring back up to a $20 million player. Maybe send out Beauchamp as well. Send out even more money. You could bring back an even more expensive player. I don't know who that'd be. I'm surprised Utah still hasn't really moved any of their top players. They're bringing in Schroeder, who I would assume is going to be a buyout guy. He cannot join apron teams. His salary is just like $200,000 above the mid-level. They've been active. They made like 4 trades already, but none involving these guys. We'll see what happens. Sounds like at this point, they might just keep all of them. Maybe the Hawks send Nance into the Wizards exception. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I said the Wizards have that Daniel Gafford exception, but Nance has been pretty good. If they're going to trade Nance, it would make sense for them to get some value back for him. And I don't see the Wizards in the business of trading picks for a role player right now. That's another guy potentially the Heat could get. If they're rerouting Kyle Anderson and Davion Mitchell, maybe they can fit him in. Who are the current apron teams? Right now, the list, I'm going to try to find it right now, because there's been a lot of changes. The big theme with this trade deadline is, what is that? The Hawks are trading Cody Zeller. All right, so that's one way to get below the tax. So they get below the tax, but they will still have to clear another roster spot. So they're trading Zeller with a second-round pick to the Rockets. The Rockets are going to have to now clear a roster spot. So they already did the Jaden Springer trade. That's official. So they could just cut him and then take Cody Zeller with their mid-level. So that would work. Still keep him under the tax. It's probably what's going to happen. And then, yeah, the Hawks they've just sent out like 4 second-round picks in the last 20 minutes or so. So Houston, they were like 10 million below the luxury tax heading into yesterday. They used the majority of that flexibility to get 2 second-round picks, taking on some bad money in Zeller and Springer. So, like I said, I expect them to cut Springer before so they can open a roster. Oh, you know what? I've got this mixed up. They're already at 50. Yeah, so they'll cut. Okay, you know what? Why am I at 16 already? Yeah, so they'll cut Stringer before, get back down to 14, then add Zeller to make it 15 again. Temporarily got them at 16. Yeah, this stream has just become Atlanta Watch. Let's see. So, yeah, back below the luxury tax. So at this point, they could just cut somebody. They don't need to make another trade. They've already sent out 4 firsts in the last few minutes to do the trades they did. And now Schroeder's heading to the Pistons. All right, I'm excited to touch on this. Holy shit. This is exactly what I was putting. If you've been watching my streams, you'll know I've been pitching Schroeder to the Pistons. And I know that doesn't sound exciting, but here's the deal. And I'm going to pull up their cap sheet to understand why. Here's it now. Forget about what... Oh, whoops. Here's what it is, what it's expected to be. As you can see, if they take on all the guys they're expected to with their cap space, then they're out of cap space. However, KJ Martin, Lindy Waters, Wendell Moore, those guys don't need to go into cap space. So the Pistons, they're now going to take Schroeder into it. They're going to do this. They're going to take him into their 14 mil. Yes, I memorized his salary. Been looking at it all week. Wait, what team was he on before? The Warriors. 13,025,250, pretty close. All right, so the Pistons are now going to take him into their cap space. They're now capped out. They'll probably waive someone, could be like Wendell Moore. Then they can take KJ Martin into their room at level. So they're going to take Schroeder with this cap space, cut someone, so then they could do the KJ Martin trade, maybe cut him, but then afterwards they can take Lindy Waters and Josh Richardson, just without any exception. They could just do it. So that's what's going to happen now. I was saying yesterday, the Pistons still have something cooking. So I'm going to modify these now because this doesn't really matter. Nope. What do I do? I'll just leave it like this. Okay. So yeah, order of operations matters. The Detroit Pistons will acquire Dennis Schroeder with their $14 million in cap space. Then they will open up a roster spot so they can acquire KJ Martin with the $8 million mid-level. Then they will open up 2 spots to acquire Lindy Waters. Oh, but you know what? Oh, it doesn't matter. They could just do it in the same trade. This is all the same trade. So hold on. Yeah, so it's being expanded to include Detroit taking him in. But then they could take, so then this Pistons are going to have to clear some roster spots now. Yeah. Because they can take Schroeder into their cap space and the 2 minimum guys in conjunction with that. And Lindy Waters and Josh Richardson via minimum exception. They will acquire KJ Martin with the $8 million mid-level. Now, another interesting, I guess they can't really flip Schroeder at this point because if they're taking, technically they can flip Schroeder immediately since they're still below the cap. But if they're also taking in Lindy and Richardson, that puts them over the cap. So I don't think they can flip Schroeder anymore. I mean, they could flip him, but they can't aggregate him. But that's fine. Like if they're going to take someone more expensive, they could just do like Tim Hardaway and something else. But yeah, I told you guys the Pistons were going to do something else before doing the KJ Martin, Lindy Waters aspect of their trade deadline. But they got to clear some roster spots. As you can see here, they cannot fit all these guys. They're going to have to clear some spots. See if there's any updates. I got to like manually stop what I'm doing to like read, see what's going on. Yeah, I'm definitely keeping an eye on Wendell Moore getting cut or moved so they can help with this roster crunch. I guess I'm caught up. Okay, so Jake Fisher. I'm going to try to get the feed the refresh. It's going to be KJ Martin, Josh Richardson, and a second round pick from Detroit to Utah. Oh, so now they're flipping KJ. So hold on. It looks like Detroit's already going to get KJ Martin first, and then they're going to flip him to Utah? Unless Philly's going to be a part of this, and then it's like a 7-team trade. But that's okay too. Yeah, I'm sure if they do, I think, yeah, they do KJ, they could do, yeah, so they don't have to use Schroeder with the entire cap space. They could take in KJ first with their cap space, trade him for Schroeder, that matches, and then they can, yeah, and then they could just waive everyone after. So that's another way it could happen. They take KJ with their cap space, flip him for Schroeder, take in those guys with the minimum. But they still got to clear some roster spots. Eight minutes. Got 8 minutes left. Okay, anything else? The Bulls have had a lot of talk surrounding Nikola Vucevic. There will be plenty of groundwork for off-season move. That's by Casey Johnson. So sounds like Vucevic is staying. You know, and even look at how this looks for Utah, because if they're not keeping Schroeder, then they'll basically have traded PJ Tucker for nothing, and they get an $11 million trade exception. Whoa, Marcus Smart to Washington. Well, the Wizards can't just absorb Marcus Smart. Maybe they're sending back Brogdon? So the Grizzlies are trading Smart and their 25 first and getting 2 seconds back. All right, there we have it. I said like 20, 30 minutes ago, all the Wizards had really left on their to-do list for this trade deadline. get an extra 2025 first, and they do it. So nice work there. But I just want to look at Utah really quick. So, okay, so basically, yeah, they're just not taking on Tucker. They're not taking on Schroeder, so they're sending out Tucker for nothing. Hold on, I might be missing things because... Oh, they're getting KJ Martin. That's right. Getting KJ Martin. Whoa, what did I just do? Oh my God. Yep, I memorized KJ Martin's salary. Kevin Porter to the Bucks for Marjon Beauchamp. Okay. So, and wait, and the Jazz are getting Josh Richardson. So the Jazz are going to have to cut someone too to bring him in. Could be Jalen Hood-Schifino. I don't think it'll be Svi yet because he's got that long-term, non-guaranteed contract that could be useful in trade. Same thing with Juzang. I don't see it being him. So, yeah, Utah needs to cut someone. But, yeah, let's take a look at Washington now. How are they going to do this? Because Memphis also can't take back too much money. But I think I want to say if they do Smart for Brogdon, that the Grizzlies should still avoid the tax. Smart makes 20.2 and Brogdon makes 22.5. Oh, someone in the chat just said, Shams said multi-team trade, so hinting at a third team possibly. No, Brogdon would put them over. Yeah, Brogdon would put them over the tax. But the Wizards, they need to send out a good chunk of money. The Kings are getting Jake LaRavia. Okay, so now we're starting to get details of a three-teamer. Okay, now that they're sending out LaRavia, they could take back Brogdon. I just don't know who else it'd be because I don't see the Grizzlies taking back and the Wizards still have 9.9 million, so yeah, I just don't see the Grizzlies taking back anywhere else really on the Wizards. But in case it's not Brogdon, it's 12 p.m. guys. Deadline's over, but we'll still probably get a couple more trades over the last few minutes. At a minimum, the Wizards can get Marcus Smart just by sending out Marvin Bagley. Just an FYI. So in case these teams are not trying to take back too much money. Okay, let's take a look at SAC, how they're going to do this. And they're sending Len out, I think I saw. They're sending Colby Jones and Alex Len out. Okay. So the Kings now have 3 open roster spots. They're at 12. They can stay at this amount for 2 weeks. And they don't need to use any of their trade exceptions to bring in Laravia if they're sending out Colby Jones and Alex Len. They have a bunch of trade exceptions. But I think the reason they send both of them out so they could stay below the tax. So $3.4 million below the tax. So they can just fill up those at least 2 of those spots with prorated minimum signings. Yeah, we got a little flurry here. There's also Wiseman to the Raptors, but yeah, the Kevin Porter Bojamp swap, those 2 players make pretty identical salaries, so there's not really much to say on that, other than Kevin Porter Jr. has 1 more year left on his deal. He's got a player option. So the Clippers get off that. Warriors are done making moves, according to Chris Haynes. So Alex Len and Colby Jones are heading to Washington. I saw that they just cut Reggie Jackson, so they're probably clearing a spot for that. Miami guys are saying there's still one thing maybe possibly happening. All right, we'll see. The Wizards will still need to clear another roster spot, though. That's not enough if they're taking... Oh, well, we'll see who they're trading. They still got to send someone pretty expensive to match for Marcus Smart. Yeah, who are they sending out? Has that been out yet? Have to wait and see on this thing, but I'm speculating either Brogdon or Marvin or Holmes. Holmes can also be headed out to make the money work. So Indiana get off Wiseman. Gives them a little bit more flexibility. What did they give up to get off him? Just cash. Okay, that's worth it. So the Pacers were like just 100,000 below the tax. They're not going to want to pay the tax, so they get off Wiseman's 2.2. Now they've got more flexibility. They open up a roster spot so they can bring in someone else, ideally another big man, considering they lost him and Isaiah Jackson to Achilles injuries. They could use one more center behind Turner and Thomas Bryant just for reinforcements. So they open up a roster spot a little more prepared for the buyout market. Toronto, as far as I know, they are not... they haven't done anything else. Have they done anything else in the past half hour? I don't think so. So now you've got Toronto. They have a couple open spots. Yeah, I don't think anything else has changed on the Toronto side of things recently. And they are going to be just a hair below the luxury tax. So good job by the Raptors. I like the Davion Mitchell trade where they got 2 second-round picks for taking him and Vezenkov on from the Kings. They get a second-round pick for trading Davion Mitchell for PJ Tucker. They were like $10 million below the tax, so they had that much money to increase their payroll. They do that by trading up for Ingram, trading up for Tucker, and now absorbing James Wiseman. I discussed the Ingram fit yesterday. I don't like it. It just seems like a worse version of whatever they were putting out when they had Siakam and OG and Barnes, just 3 really good, talented, big players. But this is probably even a worse version than that, less shooting. I'm going to catch up with the chat. Any Kleba news? Nope. Nothing yet. Do the Pistons get a trade exception? No, they don't, because they already have cap space. Maybe they do at the end of all this, we'll see. But it doesn't seem like they will. Vucevic wears no. I just got the alert from Mark Stein that they tried. It's not happening. Let's see. Okay, yeah, Fred Katz is saying that the Bucks, Knicks, Wizards, Spurs, that is a 4-teamer. Yeah, Hollinger agrees Brogdon would make some sense to Memphis. Otherwise, he'll be a buyout candidate. I don't think Marcus Smart will be a buyout candidate. He's still got another year, maybe 2 left on his deal. So he's definitely not going to be a buyout candidate in Washington. Anthony Slater, yeah, confirming Quentin Post. He's going to have to occupy that 12th spot. They're probably going to finalize that within the hour. Bobby comments that, yeah, renegotiation and extension possibility for Jaren Jackson. Well, let's see what they... Oh, I mean, yeah, if they're bringing back Brogdon or Bagley or Holmes, that's all expiring money. So I'll get into that. Yeah, they can potentially renegotiate Jaren's salary, but that's mostly going to be useful if he doesn't make All-NBA. If he gets All-NBA, he can just get the higher 30% max, and maybe the Kings and Grizzlies just negotiate how much of that he gets. Maybe he doesn't get the full max, which is like a $300+ million deal. Maybe he gets what Rudy Gobert got, just like something a little lower. But in case something happens, he doesn't make All-NBA, which right now I think he's on track to. Yeah, they can basically have cap space to do this. Yeah, check it out. So when the Grizzlies gave Jaren Jackson his deal, it was a 4-year, $100 million deal, descending scale, descending every year. And that was great in terms of helping the Grizzlies be able to keep a pretty, keep expenses pretty manageable. And they've been able to do that largely because they keep getting all these guys, converting their two-way guys to deals, to minimum deals. So they've got really inexpensive depth to support their highest paid guys. But the problem now with Jaren is that they can't realistically extend him, because next year he's going to be on like a $21 million salary, which means his next extension would be like, they can't extend way too much off that. It started like 30 million. It's way below what his max would be. So now that Smart's gone, they theoretically could have cap space to renegotiate him and keep Santi Aldama. So the theory behind that is they've got about $10 million in cap space. So part one would be they use that $10 million to give Jaren Jackson a raise, get him up to 33 million. Maybe it doesn't need to be that high. And then once he's at 33 million, then they can take his salary in the next season, 26-27, to the max. So they take care of that. So it's just kind of like insurance in case he doesn't get all NBA. Because if he just gets all NBA, I would guess they don't do the renegotiation. They just negotiate some sort of a supermax deal. And then they still have Santi Aldama's $12 million cap hold, so they can then re-sign him on top of that. So then they're going to go into next season with the same roster they have, but they're able to keep Jaren, and they've got Aldama in the mix here too. I would guess Aldama gets like a full mid-level type deal based on how he's been playing. So, yeah, good work by the Grizzlies, just having that option, just making that option possible. But as great as a job the Grizzlies have been doing all of these past years, one of their biggest fumbles has been the Marcus Smart trade. Gave up 2 firsts, albeit they're late firsts. Well, one's their own late first. The other was that Warriors first that ended up being 14th overall. Who did the Wizards? It came out to be Carrington. So they gave up 2 firsts to get him, and now they have to give up their first this year to get off him. They get a couple seconds back in exchange, but that's just been a disaster move for them. And I'm a little worried about how they are going to be in the playoffs. Like, as good as Jalen Wells has been, I don't know if I think they might need a little something else. A veteran at the 3. They tried to get Dorian Finney-Smith, didn't happen. And it doesn't seem like they got anybody else. I don't think they're getting anyone from the Kings or Wizards that can help them at the 3. Yeah. So, but that's only. But other than that, at least I'll give credit to the Grizzlies for just cutting that. The Marcus Smart experiment, ending it now while they're ahead of it. Thunder waiving Daniel Tice per Michael Scotto. I'll probably allow them to convert AJ Mitchell. Yeah, still waiting to hear what the Wizards sent out. Overall, I'll give this trade deadline an A+. Definitely the wildest, craziest deadline I've ever followed, anyone's ever followed. I appreciate that all the big stuff happened early and that the rollout was pretty slow. I don't know how. Imagine if the Luka and Fox trades happened all today. That'd be way too much. Do the Wizards have a trade exception for Smart? They don't. They don't have one big enough for him. So I'm assuming they're sending out Brogdon, Rashawn Holmes, or Marvin Bagley to make the money work. But as I showed, the Grizzlies would need us. Oh, actually, yeah, they can take Brogdon now. It's still stay below the tax because they're getting off Laravia. As Bobby mentions, Jake Laravia, he cannot resign with the Kings for more than $5.2 million, which is what his team option for next year was supposed to be. When the first round pick gets his rookie scale option declined, they become unrestricted but lose their rights and cannot get more than what they were supposed to get. So yeah, Kings needed another guy at the wing. Laravia's improved this year. It's a good fit. I think it'll work out. I guess Brogdon to Memphis on probably Kennard to. All right, I'm going to start getting into buyout guys. I think we have an idea of what the market is. So if Brogdon isn't involved, I think Brogdon, if he's still with the Wizards, he could be a buyout guy. Bruce Brown, I think that's kind of 50-50. I think it's definitely a possibility now that he's with the Pelicans, but I think his bird rights could be more valuable in the offseason for a sign and trade. So that might interest both sides to keeping him for the rest of the season. Now that Schroeder's on the Pistons, I think he'll stick around. They could use him right now, especially given Ivy's injury. Yeah, so probably not Schroeder anymore unless he's rerouted last second. The big ones are what's going to happen to the Nets guys, Ben Simmons, Bojan Bogdanovic. If they get moved, if they don't get moved, they could be very interesting players on the market. Okay, Marvin Bagley and Johnny Davis to Memphis. But yeah, I'm definitely keeping an eye on Ben Simmons and Bojan Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic obviously hasn't played all year. And the thing about the Nets is they are right up against the tax. And then, yeah, the Nets, they didn't do anything. They keep Cam Johnson. A couple of weeks ago, I would have told you Cam Johnson's the most likely player to get traded. And they got their trade deadline done early with the Finney-Smith trades, with the Melton trade. So they're right up against the tax. And they can save some room at this point by buying out one or both of Simmons or Bogdanovic. That would allow them to get a little bit of flexibility below the tax and convert one of their two-way guys, whether if they want to convert Tyrese Martin or Tassan or Reese Beekman, if they wanted to go that route. They're not going to be in the buyout market or anything like that. Okay. So both Bagley and Johnny Davis are expirings. So Memphis still has that renegotiation opportunity for next off season. So Washington can do Bagley for Smart straight up, which would allow them to create a trade exception for Johnny Davis's $5.3 million. And then they're taking on those Kings guys, Colby Jones, Alex Len. Nice. So start with the Wizards first. Yeah, look at that. They maximize their spending flexibility to the limit. $3.4 million below the tax at the end of all this. Already got them waiving Reggie waiving CD. Yeah, sent out Bagley. With Bagley in Memphis, I guess I wouldn't anticipate him becoming a buyout guy. We'll see, but yeah, very underrated offseason trade deadline by the Wizards. Chris Middleton, though, still there. Yeah, Brogdon's still there. I guess he's going to be a buyout guy. Middleton won't. He's still got a player option for next year. I could even see the Wizards giving him, getting him to maybe opt out so they can give him a longer deal. And then that makes him tradable, a little more tradable on their end if they really want to flip him. We'll see about that. Memphis is going to have to cut someone. Nope. Oh, my bad. I forgot to take out Smart. All right. So they can take Bagley into their Steven Adams. Oh, you know what? That expired. Had they still had that, they could have created a really big trade exception for Marcus Smart. So they're going to do Smart for Bagley. Then they could stick Johnny Davis into this one. So they'll create whatever the difference is, $20 million for Smart minus 12.5, like an $8 million trade exception for Marcus Smart. And then another one for LaRavia. Gain a little more tax room after all this. I don't really think they need all of it. But they do. They have, do they have any guys that are like potentially going to be converting to the roster? Well, they got to open up a roster spot to do that, so maybe not. Let's see. Okay, so I just put this out. Pretty quiet buyout market looking like, where these are really the only guys I see potentially getting bought out who have a salary above the mid-level. And then if that's the case, none of these teams would be able to sign them. But out of this group, I would just say the Nets guys are, I don't know, maybe none of these guys even get bought out. I wasn't even that confident in these guys, but it's like that's kind of it. If Capella got traded to a bad team, could have been him. But I don't think that's going to be the case. And now as I go through with the list of guys that anyone can get is even drier. Honestly, I don't even know if I want to like share these names because it's rough. Yeah, I don't. This is probably going to be one of the most boring buyout markets. Like, honestly, Reggie Jackson might be one of the best players that apron teams can sign. Cody Zeller, Patty Mills, maybe Bones. No, the Hawks could use them. They've been pretty injury strucken with God, Kobe Buffkin. They could use another they could use Bones actually. Always good to look at the players who just got moved around. Schroeder and Lindy going to remain with the Pistons. KJ and Josh heading to Utah. Yeah, I think that's everything I missed. Yeah, I think this is the buyout market with like the least clarity and probably just the weakest talent realistically available. Because even though those guys I listed as far as like the non-apron teams can't get, that the apron teams can't get, I'm not even that convinced on them. Yeah. All right. I've been going for about an hour 45. I think I covered everything. I'm not sure what else I need to. But yeah, it's 30 minutes past the trade deadline. I think we've got everything. So I'm going to check the chat one more time. Any unsigned free agent G League prospects you could see? I don't have an answer to that. The only other thing we could do is look at two-way conversions. See which two-way guys can potentially now get converted to a standard contract after everything. So Washington has an open, you know what? I need to get a better, let me see if I can find like an actual list of two-way guys. Give me a sec. Two-way contract tracker. Okay, here we go. So the Hawks, even after they cut someone, get down to, well, they'd have to cut two guys. Oh no, I didn't take out Zeller. Yeah. So they'll still need to cut someone to create the spot, but that's fine. They've got the tax space now to do it. Who can that be, though? Who would they cut? They didn't trade anyone else. I don't see them buying out LeVert. Maybe they cut Matthews? I don't know. They don't really have anyone cuttable. But once they do, they could convert specifically Keaton Wallace. He's been pretty good when playing. Boston, they opened up one spot. They didn't trade Tillman. That was something I was speculating they might do, but I don't think anyone really jumps out. But maybe one of these guys can get converted later. Yeah, Brooklyn, maybe it's Tyrese Martin post buyout. I mentioned that earlier. If they buy out one of Bogdanovich or Ben Simmons. Charlotte, they would need to open up a roster spot. I feel like Charlotte might have the most interesting guys as far as the buyout guys anyone could sign, because given their situation, I wouldn't be surprised if Cam Reddish, Seth Curry, Taj Gibson all could become available. Maybe not all of them, but maybe like Cam Reddish definitely like shouts out as a buyout candidate that any team would be able to sign. Lakers wouldn't be able to bring him back though, since they traded him. But then they could convert Diabate. I think that's looking like a likely conversion, especially given how light they are at center. It's just Nurkic and him now. They've got enough space below the tax to do that. Chicago, I don't think any of these guys necessarily jump out, but they can convert them. Cleveland, they could convert one of these guys now that they're about 1.5 million below. But I haven't paid too much attention to know if that'd be anyone. I think they keep that space for buyout market. Nuggets, don't know. Dallas, yeah, don't know. Pistons, not sure. Yeah, Warriors, I am expecting them to convert Quentin Post today. They're going to need to do it ASAP. I'm curious. So they didn't make any other moves, though. So I'm expecting that we'll hear that Jimmy didn't get his full trade bonus to help with their apron situation. Very tight squeeze if he gets that full trade bonus. Clippers, Jordan Miller, that's been one that been talked about for a while. So let's see. I didn't do the Kevin Porter trade. Let me do that one really quick because that I know Marjan makes a little more than Kevin Porter this year. So if I swap them out, only $200,000 difference. $2 million below the tax. I have plenty of space to give him. They can even use some of their mid-level exception. They have some of it left if they want to give him a bump on that first year salary. So yeah, Jordan Miller, I would expect he's going to get converted. Yeah, not sure about these Lakers guys. Jazz are going to waive Josh Richardson and Hutchefino and keep KJ Martin. So yeah, I was mentioning earlier that before they do this PJ Tucker for Josh Richardson and KJ Martin trade, they're going to have to waive someone, and that's Hutchefino. So another buyout guy for anyone looking. It's rough. Memphis, I went over them. Not sure anyone's really standing out. Miami, maybe Josh Christopher. But they still finish over the tax. Yeah, it looks like they didn't get anything else done. I'm going to catch up. Did the Heat do anything else to try to get below the tax? Because otherwise, that's it. They're going to finish just over it. I'm going to catch up real quick, see if that happened. Nope. So, and then the other thing is they would have to cut someone. So that just costs even more money. Milwaukee could be Rollins. They have some space below the second apron now to do that. Oop, let me put in Porter. Yeah, 3.2. They got plenty of flexibility. They just want to stay below this, the second apron. Minnesota, no one really. New Orleans. Boston will probably get converted. He's been pretty good this year. So they did nothing else today. $886. So yeah, they can actually convert Boston today with a minimum salary. However, no, I mean, that's it. They're not going to want to exceed the tax. So the minimum they can give them today would be like around this amount. So I figure that's the offer. They can create a little more flexibility if they do end up buying out Bruce Brown. But that's the big one. That's probably the bigger conversion out there. Boston. New York. No one really jumps out there. OKC, it's going to be AJ Mitchell. They have plenty of flexibility after taking on Daniel Tice. Orlando has had an empty spot all year. I wonder what that's about. Could be Queen. They've got the flexibility. Orlando, again, like pretty quiet offseason. I thought they'd do something. I was pretty confident maybe they'd go after Kobe White or Anthony Simons. Nothing. They really could use some help on offense, but Philly, I'm expecting they'll do Justin Edwards soon. Maybe as soon as today. They are out enough flexibility now after getting below the tax. Yeah, about $3.5 million below. Just really quickly, Phoenix, I don't know. Portland, I don't know. Sacramento, maybe Isaac Jones, but yeah, they have the room. Spurs, not sure. Raptors, maybe Jamison Battle, they've got the space. Utah, Micah Potter, they still have plenty of space. And Shinpenny. Yeah, Champagne's he's been really good for the Wizards this year. They would have to open up a roster spot, so I would expect them to waive one of the guys they just brought in, either Colby Jones or Alex Len. And then they still have $3.3 million below the tax. They can give Champagne a pretty nice deal. They still have most of their mid-level. They can give them up to a 4-year deal. Really nice deadline by the Wizards. I love it. Okay, I'm gonna catch up with the chat. I guess Brogdon to Memphis makes sense. They want to pay Santi. Yeah, Brogdon's not happening. You able to let Kings fans know what their remaining financials look like? I think I did. Yeah, I think they're $3.4 million below the tax with 12 players. So they're going to have to get the 14 in 2 weeks. They'll still be able to stay below the tax. I figure one of those would probably go to Isaac Jones through a conversion. They still have some of their mid-level left to give a multi-year deal after using most of it to acquire Jonas Valanciunas. Oh, something to keep in mind, guys, is that tomorrow, every remaining mid-level exception, biannual exception is going to spike down in value. Usually in the previous CBA, they used to prorate starting on January 10th, but they changed it where it will still prorate since January 10th, but it doesn't take effect till the day after the trade deadline. So these are going to be lower amounts, whatever teams have left. But the Kings should still have enough if they want to give a multi-year deal to Isaac Jones. And yeah, I answered about Isaac Jones. Yossi, tell us the list in which of which the Lakers can sign in the cuts. Yeah, it's a depressing list. That's the thing. Like, I only tweeted out the guys who can potentially be from non-apron teams, but it's just such a dry list for whoever can be for like the non-apron teams. It's rough. I just don't even feel like putting it out, to be honest, because I don't know, maybe I will. But I'm going to... All right, give me a sec. Because everyone's asking me. I'm getting texts asking me. Could be missing some. Oh. Yeah, I'm going through this list. I just cut a bunch of guys because now I don't see them, even like the better ones of this list, getting bought out. Okay. I just sent it out and we'll go over it. Yeah, this is all I've got. If you guys want to throw any potential in the chat, please go ahead. But like, this is kind of it. It's usually this list would be like twice or 2.5 times this. Yeah, I don't anticipate really, like, who's the best player on this list? Tice? Seth Curry? I just can't think of who else would get bought out. So yeah, these are the players, just some of the ones I could come up with that anyone can sign. All right, everyone. I am gonna end this stream. Thanks for being here. This was a lot of fun. I always envisioned covering the trade deadline like this, so I'll probably do the same thing for free agency. And yeah, in the lead up to free agency, I'm sure I'll do more live streams that have me talking about each teams. Maybe I'll get some guests. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do that because obviously I'm a cap guy, kind of an unusual format, but I'll figure it out. So once again, guys, thanks for following me. It's been a fun, wild week. Yeah, please just follow all my stuff. You can see them on the overlays. Follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, all at my name. Subscribe to Third Apron. I'll probably write some stuff tomorrow or Saturday. All right, guys.